So Naeem, thanks for coming in. A very powerful video there. 6.3 million children need saving. Just tell us a little bit about what you're trying to achieve with this campaign.
Well, basically trying to highlight the issues that young children face throughout the world. As you saw in the video, they're going through a normal day, running around, playing around, and suddenly the likes of war, disease, water issues, food issues can change a child's life to the point they lose their life, unfortunately. So that's really the point to get across, that every 3 seconds a child's dying somewhere in the world because of lack of access to water, food, medication.
And you're launching this campaign in Ramadan. Why in particular have you chosen this period?
Well, Ramadan, as you know, is the main month for the Muslim community worldwide. It's a great time to showcase issues facing less fortunate Muslims and people generally around the world. So there's a heightened awareness of charity and issues around the world. So really, it's a kind of prime time for the year to do this.
Is it Muslims in particular, you think, that are being affected by this because of the countries by which many Muslim people live in?
I think, unfortunately, at the current moment in time, there are obviously a lot of issues facing Muslim countries. But if you look at the issue of poverty, war, disasters, Nepal, for example, very recently, you can spread it across the world.
Earlier in the program, we were talking about how much conflict is costing financially, $14 trillion, and the fact that generally the world is less peaceful than it used to be. Is it conflict in particular that is a huge risk to children? Is that which is really disrupting children's lives and causing so much death around the world?
I think conflict, is definitely part of the package. Disasters, obviously, as well. They can be the starting point for lack of education, disease. If you look at Syria, for example, at the moment, it's affected X number of million of children who are not able to go to school anymore. And that might affect an entire generation now. So conflict, without a doubt, is part of the package.
So tell us a little bit about Human Appeal International, your organisation, and what you do when there is conflict and when there is big natural disasters. Are you there on the ground, and if so, what do you do?
Well, Human Appeal has been around for 25 years next year. We'll celebrate our anniversary. We work in 25 countries, and then beyond that, wherever there's a disaster, for example, Nepal. So emergency response is our first port of call, and then depending on the needs of the community, we'll put an assessment together. And to be honest, so far, we've actually been in those 25 countries for the number of years. For example, Pakistan, earthquake is 10 years this year. We've been there for 10 years, trying to resurrect the community, rehabilitate the various issues that people happen, and get them back on their feet. So we're there for the long term, unfortunately, once things start.
So when something like Nepal happens and a huge natural disaster happens, many thousands, millions of people affected, you then go out there, do you, and you sort of set up camp and stay there for the course?
That's right. We'll have a look at what the needs are. I mean, obviously in Nepal, for example, at the moment we're dealing still with emergency aid, shelter, food, medication, and then it's a case of trying to rebuild. So we'll have a look at what the community needs and work with partners on the ground. Or even some cases we'll set our own office up because the need is going to be so long, we have to really get in there. Yeah, so we'll be there for a while.
And how does that affect your staff? Because you're in very dangerous places, often very poor places, and you must see a lot of traumatic things. Just what's that like, working in those conditions?
Well, obviously we do risk assessments of what's happening on the ground, whether it's a war situation or a disaster situation, and make sure we send the right personnel out in the first place and give them the support that they need. And obviously we have to look at the risk, especially when there's a war situation in Syria, for argument's sake. We will consider whether it's safe for us to go in. Sometimes, unfortunately, the circumstances don't allow you to go in. So we'll try and go as close to the edge as possible to make sure things can happen, because the most important thing is to make sure people on the ground get the support they need.
And it's obviously very important that charities like yourself get enough funding so that you can do the things that you're trying to do. There's obviously, you can't really predict natural disasters or conflicts. In a perfect world, people wouldn't rely on charity though, would they? What do you think is the main thing that needs to happen for conditions such as people living in poverty, living without clean water? What's the main thing that needs to start to change, to happen, so that
I think our main focus is around sustainable livelihoods. So, that old saying about give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So we do try, and once we're in our community, we'll try and do as much of that as possible. I've just come up from Senegal, and I went fishing, which was quite a bit frightening because the boats aren't exactly the kind of fish trawlers we get here. But we're actually investing in a fishing project for those communities, and in Gaza as well. So the idea really is to get people back on their feet. So the starting point, like in Tharpakar in Sindh in Pakistan, there's an issue of water. And water is the root of disease, and the fact that people can't make a livelihood, and women travel every single day. So we're putting in solar-powered water systems to get the community flourishing. So we'll look at those kind of sustainable solutions so that communities don't rely on us any longer. And you're right, really what should happen is we need that kickstart. And after that, we walk out and the communities get on with it.
No, Raza, it's clearly very good work you're doing. Thank you very much indeed for coming in and telling us about it. Thanks a lot.